welcome to Pilot Error, where we look at a show's pilot and see just how different things started out. My name is Emily, and today we're looking at Cyberchase.
Cyberchase, we're moving, we're beating hacker at his game.
Cyberchase is an educational cartoon that primarily focuses on math concepts for 8 to 12-year-olds. It premiered on PBS's youth block, PBS Kids, in 2002, and is actually still running, if you can believe it. I'm not too familiar with recent episodes where they apparently shifted the focus to ecology, but the show's first 4 seasons or so are still very precious to me. I love this show, and I still remember things it taught me to this day. Even more remarkable considering I'm an English nerd and outright hated math class for many, many years. Maybe if they'd had a show like this for high school students, I wouldn't have minded so much. The show follows 3 kids, Jackie, Matt, and Inez, as they adventure through the computerized world of cyberspace. Most of their time is spent trying to find a cure for cyberspace's leader, Motherboard, after she's given a virus by the main antagonist hacker. This is all explained in episode 1, but surprisingly, that's not the pilot. Cyberchase's pilot episode is called The Pottleville Case, and actually aired as episode 7 of the first season. But an earlier version of this episode was created as a promotional demo in 1999, and then distributed to schools for evaluation. Imagine you're in elementary school and you get to grade a potential new TV show. That would be amazing. After that, it apparently aired a couple times between 1999 and 2000. Then production company Nelvana became involved, and the episode was re-edited for season air in 2002. This new version contains some new animation, tweaked dialogue, and the new voice cast, which features Gilbert Gottfried and Christopher Lloyd.
I've got big plans for you, you conniving cyber turkey!
Does it have anything to do with achieving greatness beyond our wildest dreams?
I know to the rest of the world he's synonymous with Doc Brown, but to me, Christopher Lloyd will always be Hacker.
That's the hacker to you.
Oh, of course. My apologies. Anyway, that remade version of this episode is what I'm covering today, as it's the most easily accessible. But don't worry, it still has plenty of pre-season jitters to talk about. If I'm honest, this episode kind of inspired the idea of Pilot Error as a whole, because it's just fascinating, and I'm really excited to talk about it. The episode opens with a jazzy tune and a little bit of CGI. Then we see Buzz and Elite, Hacker's henchmen, on a cyber site called Pottleville. The various places in cyberspace the kids visit, called cyber sites, all have different themes. Pottleville happens to be a cyber site of patterns, and absolutely everything is made of simple polygons and numbers. Buzz and Elite begin stealing these things called power pods from the Pottles. They're clearly baby Pottles, or at least treated as such, but they're also used as keys to get into the Pottleville Power Vault. And when Delete takes one from its stroller, this happens.
Oh, my pod!
The kids are then sent to Pottleville, and they remark on its interesting design.
So, Jane Jetson meets Martha Stewart.
Too bad Digit's not here. We could use his help.
Here's one way you can really tell this episode was originally made while the show was still in development. Digit is nowhere to be found. For some reason, I had it in my head he at least popped up for a second, but nope! All we get is this single line from Inez reminding us, yes, Digit still exists, just not right now. For those unaware, Digit is this little bird character who works for Motherboard. He sometimes acts as an audience stand-in character, making common mistakes and letting the kids explain certain concepts to him.
Hold the phone here. Zero's a number? How can nothing be something?
Look at it this way, Dig. How many baseballs do I have?
2.
Now how many?
1.
Now?
None. Zip.
He also provides most of the show's comic relief, which you could probably guess. Personally, I love Digit, and the king of the bird voices, Gilbert Gottfried, does a great job performing him.
Pretty good, huh? You want to hear me do De Niro?
Which sucks even more that he's not in this episode. The more Digit, the better, I say. We're given the first puzzle of the episode when Motherboard tries to contact the kids. And since the focus of the episode is on patterns, it's a simple number sequence pattern.
2 plus 3 equals 5. 3 plus 5 equals 8. 5 plus 8 equals... I got it! 5 plus 8 equals 13.
The fact that Matt's mental math is faster than mine is honestly offensive. I also have to mention that Motherboard's original design in the demo was just a wibbly line and 2 eyes on a screen. Personally, I'm glad they changed it because this is slightly terrifying. And now also seems like a good time to address the elephant in the room, the animation. It's a little rough, there's no other way to say it. But remember that this version reused most of the animation from the demo version, and the team was probably working with a much tighter budget at the time. So everything looks a little flatter, sort of squashed, and generally of a lower quality than what the show became used to. All that said, Cyberchase's art style is probably one of my favorite things about it, and this earlier animation still translates it well. It looks like concept art come to life. A lot of cartoons from the late 90s used to look like this. Everybody's just noodles and mismatched eyes, and I love it. And because most of the characters on this show aren't supposed to be human anyway, the artists could be really creative when it came to silhouettes and body shapes. Like the Poddles, for example. As with everything else in Poddleville, their bodies are just simple shapes with numbers on their chests. Or stomachs. Or, wait, what is this exactly? The kids find all the Poddles entering the park, but the gate is protected by a shape pattern lock.
Triangle, square, circle, circle, triangle, square, circle. Did you hear that?
What? That crazy xylophone?
No, listen.
Cyberchase hardly ever broke the fourth wall. I can really only think of one other time it happened, but honestly, based on this moment alone, I wish they did it more. They figure out the shape pattern and get into the park, but Buzz and Delete are on their tail and steal more power pods. The Poddles overreact and immediately blame the kids because Jackie was picking up the pods to admire them, and the three are thrown in jail. Then we cut to Hacker's ship, the Grim Reaker, for a short scene with our villains. And I'll be frank, this scene is probably the roughest of them all compared to the final show. Hacker's lip sync barely matches up with his lines, Rob Tinkler doesn't have Delete's typical delivery formed yet, and the editing is just awkward.
You pixel brains! I didn't want you to bring me the eggs!
It was the kids.
Yeah.
They
The
distracted
kids are
us.
still here.
Yeah, but we fixed them. They're all locked up.
Wonderful!
Meanwhile, in jail, the kids find a young Poddle that somehow snuck into their cell.
You see, I know you're innocent. You were holding a number 2 pod, but it was numbers 3 and 5 that were taken.
That's right.
The kids then try to figure out if there's a pattern in what pods are being stolen. And whoa, hang on, wait a minute, whoa. Are you telling me that this drawing board has a screensaver?
This cyberboard is cool.
Sorry, a cyberboard. So Nez and Matt try to find the pod pattern, while Jackie tries increasingly ridiculous ways to break them out of the cell.
We could use your help over here, Jackie.
You think I'm gonna find another way out? Whoa!
Jackie's characterization in the pilot is really interesting. They painted her as very headstrong and impulsive, shown more than once trying to solve problems physically while Matt and Inez think them through. Typically, however, though Jackie does tend to overreact to situations, she always prefers to have a plan. Matt is the jock of the group, and definitely more prone to jumping into things before thinking them through. Sometimes quite literally. But in the pilot, Matt's more impulsive side seems to have been transferred to Jackie for the day. Then there's Inez, who, while not necessarily a nerd in the stereotypical sense, is definitely the most book smart of the group and likes to repeat a lot of famous quotes.
Victory belongs to the most persevering. Napoleon Bonaparte.
Of the three, she seems to be the most true to her character in the pilot, but she also doesn't have a lot of standout moments to either confirm or deny that. They played it really safe with her. Anyway, they figure out there's only one pod applicable to their stealing pattern that Buzz and Delete don't have, a triangle 1. Then the podling helps them break out of jail, and they've now disguised themselves as Poddles. Stay with me. They bait Buzz and Delete with Jackie disguised as a triangle 1 pod, but Matt and Inez get caught, so the podling is the only one able to follow them to the power vault. Hacker shows up, and they get a couple pods in the correct places by guessing, so Jackie and the podling sneak off and try to open the vault from the other door. Which is convenient. Watching this show again to write this analysis, it dawned on me that Cyberchase is just a series of constant conveniences and inconveniences.
There's a door!
but no doorknob.
That's when Jackie finds out the solution is a double pattern of numbers and shapes, using the podling in place of the missing triangle 1. Can someone please explain to me why these people are using their children as security keys? Jackie gloats that Hacker lost, and then all three of them get blasted into space by the cyber power? I guess. I don't really know what happened. This got real dramatic real quick. Anyway, Pottleville is saved and the kids are rewarded for their efforts. Some final small differences I noticed before we move on. I already mentioned the animation, but the pilot also uses more CGI effects than a typical episode. Or, at the very least, they're more noticeable. The squawk pad communicators the kids use are more simplified in design, which makes sense. And they also like to give the kids these thought bubbles, which I don't remember being used regularly. The end of every episode has a live-action segment called Cyberchase for Real. This usually follows one of two recurring characters, Bianca and Harry, using concepts taught in the episode for everyday problems. For all those whiny kids in math class asking, "When am I going to use this in real life?" That may or may not have been me. I was always fond of Harry as a kid because he was the goofy one.
I bought this really cool video game player and it just zapped my savings, so now I've got the player, but I don't have any money to buy games.
Ooh, that is too real. The pilot episodes for Real segment, however, featured an actor named Kareem, taking the audience behind the scenes of Stomp, since, Stomp is a music show, and music has patterns. Fun fact, I've actually seen Stomp before. It's a pretty good time. And it is really cool to see a math-focused show promoting musical theater to kids. This segment's not really narrative-driven like normal for Reals, but I guess patterns in real life are less a problem you have to solve and more just a naturally occurring thing. Still, I'm interested what it would have looked like if Kareem became a regular For Real presenter in the style of the others. I should also mention that this For Real segment was most likely not included in the demo version of this episode. In 2019, one of the cleanup artists for the episode, Gino Patti, uploaded some pictures from his VHS copy of the demo to Instagram. These included the runtime of the tape, which was too short to have included a For Real segment. There's still a lot we don't know about the evolution of this pilot, simply because that information hasn't been made available to the public. But comparing it to later episodes, there's still a lot we can speculate on and learn from. The lack of digit, the difference in characterization, and so on. I, for one, really like that the writers wanted to use this pilot to show what a typical episode would look like, rather than walking the audience through the setup. There would be a lot of kids tuning into the show randomly after school, and reruns didn't always air in order, so it had to work as a standalone experience, which thankfully it did. And for me, that standalone experience transformed into a beautiful relationship. Cyberchase taught me math wasn't just arithmetic, but approaching problems in a logical way. It taught me different people have different learning styles, and still has some of the best continuity I have ever seen in a kids' cartoon. It does feel a little odd to reflect on a show that's still running like it's not anymore, but I think enough has changed that we can remember the good old days fondly, and maybe start learning from them in a new way. That concludes this episode of Pilot Error. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have a suggestion for a future episode, be sure to leave a comment. Cyberchase, we're moving, we're beating Hacker at his game. Don't tell me that's trying to hack the mother, but we'll get him every time.